So a couple of days ago, the latest Japanese set was released, being Triple Beat, and I was just obviously checking out prices for a few cards. And the first thing you usually do when you see a new Japanese set is check out the prices of the trainers, of course, of the waifu trainers at least. And so I'm looking at that, and I come across it's the Dendra card. So I come across the first one, and it's like $250, and I'm like, hey, I mean, it's not reasonable. I don't think it's rational, but it's actually not a surprisingly high amount. I believe that is the 92 in the set at least. And then I happened to come across the 99, I believe, is the second Dendra card. And yeah, that wasn't 250. That was over $750. And it's just kind of crazy to think that these sets are just barely released, and the hype and the prices for these cards. And the funny thing is, you look at the first set in Scarlet and Violet, Japanese being obviously base, and the Miriam card within that is roughly around about the same price as the 99 Dendra. So again, it's roughly around about $750. As far as I recall, when the set was first released in January as well, that price was not that high. It was roughly around about maybe about $450 to $500. And so the time, obviously in January when that set was released, everyone was like, yeah, this Miriam card is it's a chase card, it's a card to get, and already like crazy high price. And that normal thing that happens with pretty much anything new is obviously, or particularly obviously trading cards, which is what you want to hear about, is that they start off high, and then obviously more and more product is open, more flood the market. It's a very, very normal thing to happens in many markets, not just Pokemon trading cards and collectibles. So open a lot of product, more gets released on the market, more are available for sale, and obviously that slowly, or in some cases quickly, drives that price down. We didn't see that with the Miriam, and we don't see that with the Japanese trainers. So that Miriam card in the space of 2 months basically went up $250. And yeah, it just, again, we get to, I think we get to a point where the Japanese market now is so influential, and that desire for those specific cards within those sets is so influential that it leads to an insane amount of irrationality, which is obviously what we've seen over this. Well, with this set immediately, we've still got time. And do I think that Dendra price is going to go even higher? I'm not too sure. If it obviously follows the same route as the Miriam, then yeah, sure, that will be the case. But I do think that Miriam card is a nicer card, so I don't know, or I don't believe necessarily that will happen. I think it's kind of come out at a similar price already, which is not a coincidence, of course. So I'm not sure actually if that's going to be the case. Kind of alongside this, what happens obviously then a couple of months later, the English sets are released, and that does bring the price of the Japanese card down a little bit. And historically, that's always been the case, except for the last couple of years with the whole Full Art trainers and the fact that these Japanese cards just completely soar in value, and the English counterparts are basically left behind, left in the dust, even not just at the point of release of the English sets, but way beyond that. And we've seen that with some classic examples. You look at like a Sightseer or a Hex Maniac, which are a little bit older. That's obviously like Sun and Moon and XY, and that craze, that kind of Full Art Trainer waifu craze from 2020, 2021, really shuffled things up. And I think a lot of it is just massively irrational. I don't think a lot of it really makes sense until you obviously speak to the people who are buying them, and they are just fans. There are people out there who are happy to spend $1,000 on a Sightseer because they like it and they want it, and that's just what they're into. And yeah, who am I to kind of criticize someone for what they want to collect? I mean, there's plenty of cards and Pokemon that I collect that people would be like, you're insane and you're wasting your time on, and that's totally fair for them to say. But generally, when it comes to Full Art trainers, then if you are interested in in potentially investing in them, or whether that be long or short term, how would one approach it? Where, for example, when we're in a scenario now when the new set's released, you're expected to just wait a few months, let the card drop in price. When you find reasonable price, pick the card up. You will move on to the next set, so there's less tension on that set. Obviously, less product being opened, and slowly maybe the card settles in price, and then after a certain amount of time, that card will then rise. Depending on obviously print runs and all that kind of stuff, you can expect that basically to rise for like an indefinite period of time. Obviously, none of these are guarantees, but usually that's the case. So you start off obviously here, try and not side on. So you start off somewhere here. And then the set gets released, so you've got that initial dip, and then more and more product gets opened. For example, if we are talking about Japanese cards, the English card set comes out, and then that drops it even more, and then obviously it settles in price until there is a rise based on the fact that less product's been opened, and just obviously the amount of time that passes too. But that's not happening anymore, because what has happened recently is that it comes out here. No, it doesn't come out here. It comes out well above my head, but let's be a bit reasonable here. It comes out here, and then it goes here, and then it goes here, and then it's kind of exponential. I mean, that's certainly an exaggeration, because we don't have as many data points as we like, just because a lot of this has happened in the last year, 2021, more so than probably 2022, and maybe more than 2020, sorry. So it's that kind of 2021, 2022 period that seems to have had the biggest and most significant impact. I wouldn't say I was closely following a lot of those prices, but I did hold a lot of those cards. For example, I had some of the Erica full arts, the Japanese. I've never owned a Sightseer, for example, and I don't think I ever would, given the price that it's at now. Not to say it'd be a bad purchase, just personally, I just couldn't justify it. But I owned some of the Erica's cards, and I let go of them way before they rose as much as they did. I believe I picked them up really, really cheap, and I sold them, I think, around about $200. So this would have been around about, I think, maybe summer 2021. I sold it at that price, unless it was summer last year, which I don't think that's the case. It would have been summer 2021, yeah. And so we've only really had the time from there till now to see that happen, and it's not necessarily just a completely replicable pattern as well. For example, we've seen a couple of full art trainers. For example, I looked at a few. Like one popular character in Pokemon, of course, is Cynthia. So Cynthia was a full art trainer in Starbirth, which was 6, 7, 8 months ago, maybe a bit longer. And at that price currently is at $40, and the Brilliant Stars version of that is at $10. Not too much movement there, but I don't see that much activity there either way. But something like that is obviously so far withdrawn from what we're seeing with like the Miriam and the Dendra card in the last couple of sets, and there's obviously an impact that people are seeing, potentially from like watching the anime or playing the games, and the kind of impact of those characters in there. But you'd expect something like that similar from a Cynthia as well, right? In that she's a very, very popular character. She's one of the best, and I would say she's the best champion of any region, just because she was really good. She obviously played some part in the anime. She played some part in the movies too. So she's been influential in the game. She's had significant releases. Hidden Fates, for example, that trainer in there is obviously a fantastic example. Obviously the new one in Crown Zenith too, with the one where she's with the Gastrodon. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily completely replicable in that sense, and you can be pretty sure that this is going to happen. But what we're seeing now is just, I feel like, I wouldn't say it's unprecedented, because no one's surprised anymore. It is just crazy. But if you are interested, and you are someone who's interested in dabbling in full art trainers, then, and I know I've just waffled there in the last few minutes, but I guess my thinking there then is, what do you do if this is something you're interested in looking into? And my first thought is that these cards coming out at this price, insanely inflated, so much so that I think partly the cause of the insane cost of the actual booster boxes as well. So both Triple Beat and Sun and Moon, Scarlet and Violet are still over. They're both over $100 still. Insanely difficult to get hold of, just because everyone in Japan is kind of going crazy trying to get hold of the product themselves. I'm not sure if you would have seen, but there are some pictures of people waiting outside of Japanese game stores over the past weekend, hoping to get Triple B, and they were queuing from the early hours of the morning just to get their hands on a few booster boxes. And I imagine a lot of them were going for those full art trainers, and as I said, significantly impacting the booster boxes and the prices that they are set at. So you look at that and you think, okay, these cards are coming out and they're insanely high. And before you look at like a Miriam, for example, that has increased over the last couple of months, you're not expecting it to increase as much as it does, and it has. So my first thought is I'm staying away from those cards that are coming out immediately and are as highly priced as they are, just because it just doesn't make sense, right? And then it makes even less sense when that card goes up. And if you are someone who's like super, you want to be super kind of proactive, and you want to be on the day of release picking up those cards, so be it. But when you're picking up a card at $500 or $700, I feel like there's just an enormous amount of risk there, considering they're still set cards. But once you start talking thousands of dollars, you're talking expensive Watsy Hollows, Gold Stars, and not necessarily medal prize winner cards or anything like that, but it's that you don't just see normal set cards there any longer, particularly modern cards, right? Sure, we've got like a Moonbryon, and again, that's an exception. Even the Rayquaza, for example, that's been trending upwards recently, but still, I would say they are exceptions. So when I see that price immediately from release, it doesn't interest me personally. But for those who are interested, I would just say, if you're going to do that, you may as well just grade the card and see if you can flip it that way, unless you're obviously keen to just hold on to it. It's tough, just because the card, the Dendron now, is going to come out at $700. It's been sold at $700 initially. Do you think in 3 months' time that's going to be $1,000 card and rise the same way that the Miriam card did? I personally don't see it. But when irrationality is out the window, how do you justify the initial price, never mind the potential price, right? It's hard to do it. But the important kind of price point I like to look at is that kind of 750, 800 range, just because an example I spoke about earlier, like the Sightseer, it's kind of probably a key point there, in that is probably one of the most sought after, given the conversations I've had and kind of what I've seen. From Sun and Moon, I'd say that was probably, alongside the Lily card, probably the most desired card in that sense. And that Raw is still not breaking that price point, and it's there's a lot of them out there. It's not that they're difficult to necessarily get hold of. More so, obviously, every day. But the key thing with that was there was a lot of those already on the market by the time people decided they wanted to pay $700 for a trainer. And it's a similar thing with those Erica cards that I was talking about as well. But that's not what we have with the newer cards, of course, just because they're yet to flood the market and it's already an insane amount of desire for them. So there's certainly potential there, if that's something you are interested in. As I said, I'm personally not one to go that way, but if I was, I would probably just try and get a hold of one and grade it and then flip it, just because even though they are as expensive as they are, there is still a premium to the PSA 10, and if you're lucky enough to grade with, or to get a Beckett 10 as well, even better. Black Label's obviously insane. It is certainly one of those plays you can make where you are picking it up immediately. Obviously, if you can get one with good centering, because usually that's going to be your only issue. But I imagine the gem mint rates are going to be really high regardless. So it'd be kind of one of those plays where you just pick up and flip. I think if you are looking at doing something different and you are not someone who is going to want to drop $700 on a single card and release, I certainly think there is a lot of opportunity there. And I've referred to the Hex Maniac as well from X and Y, and there are a couple of other training cards you can pick out from X and Y and Sun and Moon that we are kind of looking into that many hundreds of dollars price point and price range. But I feel like there is some opportunity in tiers below that. I gave the example, of course, earlier of the Cynthia, and the Cynthia from Ultra Shiny GX. So that's obviously the Japanese Hidden Fates. Is around about $350, and the Hidden Fates copy is $80. And you'll have obviously noticed at this point I have yet to speak about or too much about English full art trainers, and the reason why I've done that is just because if you are someone who is interested in investing and playing around with and just maybe picking up cards for the long term, and you want those to be full art trainers, I just would not recommend looking into English full art trainers. I just don't think it's worth your while. I've been selling full art trainers for a few years at this point on my eBay store, and yeah, they sit at a reasonable price. They're never kind of especially too expensive. Even that Cynthia price that I quoted from Hidden Fates is what, $80 now, and 2 years ago during the boom it was a similar price, a little bit after, and that's not a bad thing, right? But at least in that sense, if you are someone who's wanting to look into investing and putting money into those full art trainers, I just would not recommend English cards at any point throughout that. We're at a point now basically where if you are someone who's interested in full art trainers, just the best cards you can get are the Japanese cards. And of those Japanese cards, of course, the best ones are the waifu cards. So another thing really is probably just to avoid anything that has a male character, or basically anything that does not have some it's a weird way of saying, but just does not have some kind of like waifu or any of that kind of thing around it. Like there's a lot of, the thing is there are a lot of good full art trainers out there that are not waifu cards. Like for example, I'm a big fan of like the Adaman in the V-Star Universe, and even like Friends of Galar, V-Star Universe, that kind of stuff. Friends of Hisui. Like I really like those as cards. But you know, if you're limited with what you can purchase and you want to be a bit more targeted potentially, because you're obviously looking at different avenues and alternatives, just stay away from all of that stuff. It's probably not worth your while. But outside of that, and kind of outside of those crazy high cards that we're seeing now, I do think there is the opportunity. Like for example, that Ultra Shiny GX Cynthia being at $350. It seems like, I wouldn't say it's a no-brainer certainly, but something that potentially I can see doing well in the future. There are another couple of examples as well, like the Elisa from V-Star Universe, being at it's roughly around about $100 in Japanese, and obviously that V-Star Universe, and it's around about $30 for the Crown Zenith copy, $25 to $30 there. That's another one that's obviously quite new. Guess the main thing with that being a lot of V-Star Universe products has continued to be open just because it's such a good set to open. And there was the decent amount of product out there. Although, yeah, that kind of another conversation about that, with the fact that the booster box prices are basically the same as they were 3 months ago, and we're still waiting for a proper reprint of those as well. But if you look, and I guess I'm not going to sit here and talk through every example, but you can go back to Sun and Moon, and you can go back to the XY era, and there is opportunity there. Obviously, it's those top cards, or the kind of most waifu cards, I guess, the ones that have been identified first, your Sightseers and your X-Maniacs and your Serenas, that kind of stuff that has you potentially at this point you may not see as much opportunity in relative to other cards, but I just think it's a fun thing, and it's a bit of a crazy thing to have your eyes on and to be invested in at the moment. Although, as I've mentioned a few times, it's just massively irrational, and it's one thing. I wouldn't say it scares me, but it does make me a little bit hesitant to pick out those top end Japanese Fallout trainers. But at the end of the day, things just seem to be on an upward trajectory over and over again. I mean, as I said, 2021, I sold the Erica trainers that I had for like $200, and therefore $500 at this point. Sure, they may have slowed down here and there, but do you see them going lower? The Sun and Moon Full Arts, not much of that product is available, not many boxes are getting opened. The only real thing that's going to cause that to go down then potentially is just a lack of, or a loss of hype, and that doesn't seem like something that's going to happen anytime soon, given that Scarlet and Violet has gotten off to the way it has at the moment, and because of that, and the way that I kind of foresee this era continuing over the next year or two, I don't think it's gonna slow down anything happening, or any of those kind of examples from kind of Sun and Moon, your XY, even maybe now Sword and Shield as well. I don't necessarily think that's going to slow down anytime soon, given that like Scarlet and Violet is just like set off as quickly as it has, and things are just immediately insane. But it'll be interesting to watch how that Dendra card does over the next couple of months. I'll certainly be keeping an eye on it, given what we saw with the Miriam card, of course. If that card gets to $1,000 within 3 months, I don't know. I don't even know what I'd do. I mean, first thing I'd do is kick myself for not buying any, but yeah, I'd be shocked. It's like you say you're shocked, but you're also not shocked, just because the hobby and all these things going on just kind of you kind of just become numb and unsurprised basically by a lot of the stuff going on. So those were some points I wanted to kind of share, and some views and some things I'd seen over the last couple of months in regards to potentially wanting to invest or make moves in the in Fallout trainers. So thank you for checking out the video. Please leave a like if you did enjoy the video, and subscribe if you're not already, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next one.